10 years gets me some kind of additional privilege or opportunity to be able to listen to his music early or weigh in on the next collection of Rave Pig NFTs that he drops. So I think our ability to interact with one another, not necessarily in a financial manner upon its face, but rather unlocking privileges with our behavior captured in the shape of tokens in a way that is privacy preserving to us, but can interact with the smart contracts that we know and love. I think that gives me a lot of hope. Because when you sign up for your first set of keys, you don't actually have to fill that wallet up with money to get started. You can play with all kinds of interactions using a key pair. And of course, many and on-chain are incredible and have led to the world that we have now. But if we start playing with the ones that do not require us to have funded wallets to start, we can welcome so many different kinds of communities into our fold together.
Well, Evan, Vitalik, this was a fantastic journey down the world of attestations, credentials, and what happens when we unlock non-financial use cases in the world of Web3. So thank you so much for exploring this conversation with me. And hopefully, I'm pretty sure the listeners did learn a bunch about how much left there is to unlock in the world of not cryptocurrency, but cryptography, which is ultimately the reason why we're all here in the first place. So Evan, Vitalik, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you too.
Party on.
All right. Action items, Bankless Nation. Here's what I want you to do. We talked about things like loans and Harvard degrees, but then Evan finished off with things like listening to your favorite band or, engaging in art. And so I want you to think about what are the things that make you, you, and how that could be leveraged in the Web3 world in the future, in the creator economy, in the NFT world, and all the beautiful art and cultural expression that could come out of these things when our DAOs, our organizations, our creators can have more verifiable and trustless data about who we are. That is your action item, is to use your imagination. Of course, risks and disclaimers. We didn't really talk about cryptocurrency. And in fact, this episode was specifically not about cryptocurrency. So while that is true, ETH is still risky, crypto is still risky, DeFi is still risky, but also leaking data is also risky. So be careful about the credentials that you touch in the world of Web3. You can lose what you put in, but we are headed west. We're on the frontier. It's not for everyone, but we are glad you are with us on the Bankless journey. Thanks a lot. Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.
The more we consider the tools we have both on and off chain, the more fun superpowers we're going to be able to create in Web3.
Bankless Nation, I'm joined by two people who are paying attention to the world of credentials. And we have on the right, we have Vitalik Buterin, founder of Bitcoin Magazine, global citizen, and record holder for the highest number of unmerged and ignored EIPs. Vitalik has recently been an advocate for soul-bound NFTs, which are NFTs that cannot be transferred, which offer alternative use cases than the NFTs you're probably familiar with. Vitalik, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for the lovely introduction, David. It's great to be here.
Yeah, cheers. And also we have Evan McMullen, founder of Disco XYZ and core community member at the Boys Club. Evan is working on the world of verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers. She's a devoted advocate of privacy and consent, in which she believes are the key ingredients to producing an off-chain decentralized identity system which preserves user sovereignty. Evan, welcome back to the show as well.
Thank you so much for having me, David. Let's get this party started.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so a little context for the show. I met Evan during my crypto travels, and it became immediately obvious to me that she's an aficionado of data primitives, tokens, NFTs, on-chain and off-chain, and decentralized identifiers and VCs. Learning about like these off-chain primitives, DIDs, and VCs felt like, for me, like learning about crypto for the first time, where like it was super complicated, it like broke my brain, it was hard to wrap my head around. But as soon as I saw it, I was immediately pilled, which is something that we now call taking the disco pill, which to me, the basic idea of the disco pill is to meme self-sovereign identity into existence, and that requires off-chain data like DIDs and VCs. VCs, not venture capitalists, but verifiable credentials. So because you as a human do not live on chain, you are not your Ethereum address, you can't lose your soul like you can lose your private keys, and you also can't spin up new souls like you can spin up new private keys. So therefore your soul, and also your soul cannot be tagged by external graffiti artists, like how your Ethereum address can be airdrop spam. So after talking to Evan, she's like, burned it into my brain that on-chain tokens and on-chain data, or anything on-chain really, is not sufficient to fully express your human identity. Meanwhile, this human you might know, Vitalik Buterin, releases a blog post titled Soulbound NFTs, which makes the case for NFT tokens that cannot be transferred, which start to behave very much like the verifiable credentials that Evan is so obsessed with, except for one key difference. The data for a Soulbound NFT is fixed to an open, public, and permissionless ledger. And I'm not used to disagreeing with Vitalik. I'm also not sure if I do disagree. And so this is what we're here to do today, is to get down to the bottom of this conversation. When should we be using off-chain credentials, and when should we be using Soulbound NFT? What are the merits of each? And hopefully we can educate the listener enough to expand their minds about the possibilities that are unlocked once we tackle some of these tough identity questions and the world that can emerge from that. So guys, that is my opening rant. And so thank you for bearing with me on that. Rocket Pool is your friendly, decentralized Ethereum staking protocol. You can stake your ETH with Rocket Pool and get our ETH in return, allowing you to stake your ETH and use it in DeFi at the same time. You can get 4% on your ETH by staking it with Rocket Pool, but you can get even more by running a node. Rocket Pool is the only staking provider that allows anyone to permissionlessly join their network of validating nodes. Running a Rocket Pool node is easier to set up than running a solo node, and you only need 16 ETH to get started. Why would you do this? You get an extra 15% staking commission on the pooled ETH, so your APY is boosted. So if you're bullish ETH staking, you can increase your APY and get some extra tokens by adding your node to the decentralized Rocket Pool network, which currently has over 1,000 independent validators. It's yield farming, but with Ethereum nodes. You can get started at rocketpool.net and also join the Rocket Pool community in their Discord. You can find me hanging out there sometimes in the chat, so I'll see you there. The Layer 2 era is upon us. Ethereum's Layer 2 ecosystem is growing every day, and we need bridges to be fast and efficient in order to live a Layer 2 life. Across is the fastest, cheapest, and most secure cross-chain bridge. With Across, you don't have to worry about the long wait times or high fees to get your assets to the chain of your choice. Assets are bridged and available for use almost instantaneously. Across bridges are powered by UMA's optimistic oracle to securely transfer tokens from Layer 2 back to Ethereum. A token proposal is being deliberated as we speak in the Across forum, where community members will decide on the token distribution. You can have your part of Across's story by joining the Discord and becoming a co-founder and helping to design the fair launch of Across. If you want to bridge your assets quickly and securely, go to across.to to bridge your assets between Ethereum, Optimism, Arbitrum, or Boba networks. Arbitrum is an Ethereum Layer 2 scaling solution that's going to completely change how we use DeFi and NFTs. Over 300 projects have already deployed to Arbitrum, and the DeFi and NFT ecosystems are growing rapidly. Some of the coolest and newest NFT collections have chosen Arbitrum as their home, all the while DeFi protocols continue to see increased usage and liquidity. Using Arbitrum has never been easier, especially with the ability to deposit directly into Arbitrum through all the exchanges, including Binance, FTX, Huobi, and Crypto.com. Once inside, you'll notice Arbitrum increases Ethereum speed by orders of magnitude for a fraction of the cost of the average gas fee. If you're a developer who wants low gas fees and instant transactions for your users, visit arbitrum.io/developer to start building your dApp on Arbitrum. If you're a degen, many of your favorite dApps on Ethereum are already on Arbitrum, with many moving over every day. Go to bridge.arbitrum.io now to start bridging over your ETH and other tokens in order to experience DeFi and NFTs in the way it was always meant to be: fast, cheap, secure, and friction-free. Vitalik, any comments or perspectives that you want to share before I get into my first questions on that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, like I definitely don't consider myself an on-chain maximalist. I think the thing that I actually advocate is definitely a combination of on-chain and off-chain approaches, where we use the different parts and different things for the task that they're each best at. And like I do actually think that the community is and including both. Probably all three of us here and even all of the other people that have been kind of blabbing about the subject on Twitter over the last couple of weeks probably disagree with each other much less than it seems, just because like these concepts don't really to me describe like fundamentally different categories of technology, as they do even like different starting points, and you can go from one and you can go from the other. And I do think in some cases there are like these specific topics where it really is important to kind of really drill down and figure out like which approach makes sense. But in general, like these aren't two incompatible islands that we're talking about, right? So I'm looking forward to figuring this out.
Yeah, and I think hopefully as we go and talk about like when off-chain, when on-chain, the user or the listener also gets an idea of what the hell we're actually talking about and what is unlocked when we talk about credentials in a decentralized fashion. And Evan, same question to you. Any comments or perspectives that you want to bring to the table before I jump into my first questions?
For sure. I want to echo Vitalik's note. I think that it's a really exciting moment in our ecosystem because we are looking at our own role in Web3 in a different way than we have before. And so we as a community have the opportunity to go meet people where they are in their own journeys, not at the first step of our user journey, which means that we can reach out to so many communities who haven't yet engaged with Web3 if we can tackle the endpoints that they're already using. So super stoked to get into the details today. And I definitely think that the more we consider the tools we have both on and off chain, the more fun superpowers we're going to be able to create in Web3.
Yeah, and so before we get into the differences between what happens when these bits of data are on-chain or off-chain, I want to actually start exploring for the listeners who are used to when they hear the word NFT, they think of like some JPEG, or if they think of some like blob of data, or like how people are using our data, they kind of think of Web 2. And so I want to start to define what is the world that we're actually talking about here. So the question is like, what can these things actually do? Because both a soul-bound NFT, which is on-chain, or an off-chain verifiable credential, they both attest to something. And so to get the right image in the listeners' heads, I want to talk about like what are the utilities of these things, what use cases do these things unlock, and what can we really do with these things? And so Vitalik, I want to get your perspective on like what is the use case that gets unlocked with these attestations, whether it's on-chain or off-chain.
Sure. So I think the direction that I've been coming at this is basically trying to take the use cases of blockchains beyond finance, and also to try to use some of those ideas to fix some of the problems that we've noticed in blockchain applications. So like blockchain governance is a big example that I've talked about, but also other applications as well, right? So like I've talked many times, in all of my various places on this podcast, just for example, about how I really dislike coin voting governance, and coin voting governments can easily turn into something, very plutocratic and non-representative. So I've been kind of faced with this problem of, well, if you don't like coin voting governance, then, what else can you use as like the unit of determining like, who can participate in governing and who can't, right? So like, I talk a lot to optimism people, for example, and I've been a big fan of their approach with having both a token house and a citizen house. But then if you want to have a citizen house, then like, you have to have some concept of like, representing who is a citizen, right? So you needs to have some way of representing like what properties does this person actually have? Has he actually participated in the optimism ecosystem? Has he have they participated in the Ethereum ecosystem? You might want to try and see, like, is there some evidence that this person actually knows, has some knowledge that could be relevance to the governance process? How do we even know these things are 5 different people instead of 5 accounts that are owned by one person? And if you want to have applications that use that information, then you have to formally represent that information somehow, right? And the Ethereum ecosystem already is starting to have more and more of these ways of formally representing stuff, right? So there's the Proof of Humanity protocol, there's the Pope protocol. If anyone's gone to an Ethereum event, chances are you've seen Patricio Bertolter at least once, giving you one of those lovely popes, and There is, to me, really a lot of good that can happen if you unlock the ability to do those kinds of things. And but the challenge is like, how do we actually create a technology stack for doing that sort of thing that's actually sustainable? And I think if we can create something that works well, then I think there's a lot of use cases that have to do with like Ethereum DAOs and airdrops and things like that, but also eventually new applications as well.
So just to rephrase that to make sure me and the listeners are tracking, the current state of like DAO governance is governance by capital, right? Token vote. And that has some amount of utility in terms of governance. There are some instances where like governance by capital is what you want, but is by and large probably the minority of the total expression of governance possibilities. And so what you're focused on with this attestations is there are alternative ways to identify who should have governance powers over a system that has not to do with the capital of the system, and it instead is other things. And like you said, the Optimism's Citizen House is a portion of the governance over the Optimism ecosystem that is explicitly not the capital, not the token, but is instead based off of the merits, perhaps. And so could you also illustrate just like, if it's not capital, what else is it? Is it turn it into a meritocracy, or what are the other alternatives that are unlocked if we are not having a capital governance system?
Yeah, first I should also add that like governance here is kind of just the first motivating app, right? Like I do think that there's a lot of other apps as well, and the Soulbound paper with Pooja and Glenn, we talk about like loans, potentially kind of clubs and memberships and like all of these use cases, but governance is just one where there's already this kind of big existing demand. So just a couple of fairly simple examples. One is just proof of humanity, right? So, you could do some quadratic thing where if you have n tokens, then instead of n units of governance power, you have square root of n units of governance power. And so like that still is a little bit token based. And so you get the benefit of being able to distinguish between someone who cares about optimism versus someone who doesn't care about optimism. But at the same time, the square root function kind of drops off after a while. And so, you don't have kind of full on plutocracy, right? So that's just one simple example. Another example is that one of the things that I think we could do a lot more with is airdrops, where the airdropping is done in a more intelligent way, right? So the airdrops that we have today, like a lot of them, they get VC farmed. Even if they don't get VC farmed, a lot of people claim them and then just sell them immediately. The thing that would be more interesting to see is like airdrops that try to actually filter for people who like actually care about a project, who actually really participated in it, and maybe even people who like learned more about the project or even kind of participated in that project in some micro way, right? And if you wants to do that, then like, or if we wanted to be like remotely easy for people to do that sort of thing, then like being able to formally represent, this person did this thing, this person kind of used this project for this amount of time, participated in this event, and that sort of thing would actually make it much easier to do that sort of stuff, right? And that way, we can have airdrops to like actually target both, people who would actually hold the coin instead of just selling it immediately, and like actually continue to be productive, contributors to that project's community.
Yeah, so Evan, feel free to build on what Vitalik was saying here, but we all know in the crypto world, the state of crypto is not yet what we want it to be in the future. So there's a lot many things to unlock in order to get to that future. So attestations and credentials being one of those things. What can we unlock, and what is left to unlock in DeFi, crypto, and all of these systems that we're building when we have like a robust identity system that Vitalik is referencing?
So right now, without a robust reputation system, a robust identity system, the only thing that I know about you when I know your Ethereum address is how much money you have and what kinds of financial transactions you've been participating in, what kinds of assets you've purchased or been gifted, stolen, been airdropped. And so we can't coordinate, as Vitalik was noting, very interesting coordination games. It's fairly plutocratic when we're based on token holdings alone. And so being able to describe the qualitative traits that we have as individuals, our non-financial contributions to our communities, things like our achievements, our capabilities, our friendships, relationships, our memberships in secret societies, all of these traits describe us as humans and deserve the ability to interact with our smart contracts, as well as being prepared to interact with folks from any ecosystem, not just Ethereum. And so the externalities that we can start to enjoy if we take hold of off-chain data for these purposes, is that we can maintain our privacy, our autonomy, our integrity without having to experience data leakage around what happens when someone sends you a token. The macro externality of sending a token on a blockchain from one party to another is, basically it's that Satoshi did it once and set forth the world we know as Web3, which is how we got to now. Which is a very exciting moment, for us. As far as I understand from this conversation so far, Vitalik and I agree that identity is an essential primitive for Web3. And our community, as we have discussed, is paying attention to identity in a way that they haven't before, whether through trauma or through faith. So we have an opportunity to answer the big questions working together. How do we direct our YOLO energy in a sustainable and regen way? How can we put consent above contracts and people over protocols to align on our common values and define our identity architecture for Web3? The public conversation that we're in right now has jumped into solutions, and it's the first time that a lot of crypto Twitter is talking about identity, which is super awesome. But we have this moment to amplify our shared energy into a very intentional direction. Vitalik, you provided a wonderful conjecture that can help us come together as a community to optimize for our shared experience as people. We have an opportunity to make these trade-offs that we have to make between consent and availability with a shared allegiance to the human beings that we serve. As Chelsea Manning told me recently, data scientists are ethicists. And so we have this opportunity to depoliticize our data structures together, which is why I'm so excited that we're here today.
Evan, I think you see a fork in the road with how we can do identity, and like one ends up in a better world and one ends up in a worse world. And so like there's a famous tweet that you and I talked about from our friend Cooper Turley, where he said NFTs are the truest form of our identity or our personality or something like that. And so can you illustrate this fork in the road that you see with regards to like NFTs as identity or on-chain data as identity versus off-chain identity?
For sure. And so to engage Coop's tweet, right? Cooper's vibes have launched 1,000 communities, and his Web3 wallets, like his wardrobe, are a fairly thoughtful reflection of his taste and his preferences, his purchases. NFTs are an authentic reflection of someone's interest and ability to obtain public digital items. So Cooper is not a music NFT as much as he would like to be. He is obviously too tall for that. Cooper is not a pair of designer sneakers. Cooper's collection of objects, both digital and physical, reflect his taste, which